First, the USDA's Justice for All non-discriminatory statement, which simply states that all persons must be treated equally without regard to their race, color, national origin, sex, religious creed, disability, age, political beliefs, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity, and that our institution provides an inclusive space for all. For more information on the And Justice for All statement, please visit the USDA's website.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Commie and I'm a nutrition educator for Rutgers Cooperative Extension in the Department of Family and Community Health Sciences for New Jersey SNAP Ed. And we're here today to bring you mashed sweet potatoes in 3 different ways. So sweet potatoes are an excellent source of vitamin A in the form of beta carotene. And vitamin A is important for our eye health, for it improves our night vision and it helps with preventing cataracts. It is also really good for immune health, and vitamin C is also really good for immune health. They both help prevent chronic diseases and infections, thus promoting good health throughout our lives. When you're selecting your sweet potatoes, you want to make sure that they are firm and they have a smooth skin, and you want to avoid many cracks in the skin. So sweet potatoes, the skins aren't perfect. They're moved around, they're husked and bussed and thrown, but you want to make sure there are no big dividends or cracks that expose the inside of the potato, or that there are many big blemishes or soft spots. So you want to avoid that when you're selecting your potatoes at the grocery store or at a farmer's market. Mashed sweet potatoes are a really easy and nutritious dish that can accompany pretty much any type of traditional meal. They're a little bit different than mashed potatoes, traditional mashed potatoes with white potatoes, whereas you can customize them based off their flavor profile, and it can accentuate any dish that you put them with. So just a little vegetable fun fact. Sweet potatoes and yams typically get confused for one another, even though they are not the same. Sweet potatoes are typically grown in the US, the supply that we get, or they're imported from tropical climates in the Americas, whereas yams are grown and imported and originated from places like West Africa or Asia. Characteristically speaking, sweet potatoes are more plump than yams, and they're more round, and they are actually packed with more vitamin A compared to yams. Whereas yams are more tuberous, so they are longer, less plump, and they have less vitamin A. So when you are at the grocery store or at a farmer's market, if you're looking for sweet potatoes, just know that sweet potatoes will definitely be more plump and yams will be tuberous. Let's discuss what tools you'll need in the kitchen for mashed sweet potatoes in general. And so first, let's start out with a cutting board that you use for vegetables. You want a clean cutting board, something firm. Because the sweet potatoes are very dense, you need a cutting board that won't slip from under you, that is firm, that is solid. And again, one that you use for vegetables, if that is the case. So we'll need one cutting board. And one other important thing is we'll need our measuring tools to measure out these ingredients. I already measured them out, but I used my measuring tools. We need tablespoons and teaspoons, so make sure you have your measuring tools handy. You can also measure with your hand as well if you know how to. That is fine. And finally, you need some sort of mashing tool. So I have this plastic mashing tool. I bought it from the dollar store, and I will be using it to mash my sweet potatoes after they come off the stove. You can also use a big fork. That will work. It just might take a little bit more time, but it gets the job done. So you want something that is firm enough to mash the sweet potatoes after they come off the stove. And of course, when chopping, you will need a knife. I used my chef's knife just because it is very sturdy and it helps me control the cutting motion when I'm cutting the sweet potatoes because they are, again, very firm, very dense, and you want to cut through them without hurting yourself or having them slip up from under you. So I use my chef's knife for that. It's in the sink right now, so sorry about that. But yes, you will need a chef's knife or something durable to cut through the sweet potato. So let's get started. Here we are cutting up the sweet potatoes, prepping them to be boiled. And we're cutting them into pieces that are all similar. You really want to get these pieces alike so they all cook alike and they will be ready for the mash. Similar cuts you'll be making will be to that size. And before I made those cuts, I cut off the ends of the sweet potatoes. The ends have this, rooty end to it that we won't be using in the mash. So you want to slice off both ends of the sweet potato before starting to cut into it and making even sizes. And we're using a chef's knife to complete this process. This is really a good knife for prepping, these harder vegetables, getting nice even cuts. And here is our finished product for our prep, and I'm going to finish off the last two. So after we're done giving them a chop, we're going to add the sweet potatoes back into the pot where they will boil. And so they want to be at that same consistency. Stir them around, make sure it's even. And we're going to add about 2 cups of water to start. We want them submerged as they boil and soften. So we're going to add about 2 cups of water. See if they are coated in water. And if they're not, we're going to grab some more water and go ahead and add that to the pot. So about 4 cups of water. Put that to the side and get ready to turn on the stove. So next we turn on the stove to about medium to high because we want them to boil and soften. Another tool you'll need after the sweet potatoes come off the stove will be a strainer. So get ready to strain the liquid from your sweet potatoes and you'll place your sweet potatoes back into the pot. And after about 15 to 20 minutes on medium to high heat, you'll see them start to boil and they're ready to come off. We are going to start to strain them. You want to set up your strainer in your sink or over a bowl. Separate the liquid from the sweet potatoes, capturing the sweet potatoes in the strainer. Be careful, it is hot. Set your pot back on the stove on a cold range and grab your sweet potatoes and start to sift the water, the excess water that is hanging on there from the sweet potatoes. You're going to give them a shake or two. Look how soft they are. Change a little bit in color. Keep shaking them until you get that liquid out as much as you can off there. So after removing all of the liquid from the sweet potatoes, we are putting them back into the pot and we'll be mashing them with our masher. And so we're just going to go ahead and mash. And you really want to put a lot of pressure down when you're mashing. Make sure you're holding the pot with one hand. It is very hot, so be careful. But as you mash, you can clear the masher of the sweet potatoes every now and then. And we're looking for a good consistency that we prefer. So I prefer chunky potatoes, but soft potatoes as well. And see, I'm going to clear my masher and keep mashing until it's at the consistency that you prefer. Puts a lot of effort in. I had to switch hands because it gets a little heavy. Clear the masher and keep mashing. I kept the skin on, and just a reminder, you don't have to. You can peel the potatoes before you put them in the pot to boil. So I am all set mashing my sweet potatoes. They're at a mashed consistency that I like. It took me about a minute and a half to do so. I will continue to whip them once I separate them into 3 bowls. So the reason why I'm separating them into 3 bowls is because, again, we're making 3 different recipes. One recipe is a traditional take, so I'll put it in this bowl. Then I have a sweet take on mashed sweet potatoes, so we're going to put it in this yellow bowl. And finally, we have our savory take, and I will put it in a slightly larger bowl. So altogether, I made about 9 pounds of sweet potato. They're all mashed up. I'm going to portion them out and then start on the traditional take. Okay, so now I have my 3 bowls with 3 portions of sweet mashed potato. Let me put 2 to the side and we will start with our traditional take. So again, our traditional take on sweet mashed potatoes involve our mashed potatoes, our sweet mashed potatoes, some pepper, which will be 1/3 teaspoon, salt, 1/3 teaspoon of salt, which is optional, and 2/3 of a teaspoon of fresh thyme. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to sprinkle each ingredient in here. I'm just going to use a little bit of salt. And of course the thyme that I'm going to further put in there. Thyme. There we go. All the thyme in there. Awesome. I'm going to take my spoon and I'm going to just give it a good mix. You can already smell that thyme, fresh pepper. And again, I like the skins on my potatoes when I make mashed potatoes, so I did the same thing with the sweet mashed potatoes. You can peel them, that is no problem. I like mine a little bit more chunky. Give it a good mix. You want to mix all of those ingredients in, salt, the pepper, and the thyme into the mashed potatoes. You want to make them look whipped. You give them another mash if you would like. And then you want to whip them again for presentation. Switch tools. There we go. Keep that hand on the bowl because it will slip. Keep whipping them. There we go. And there you have it, a traditional take on sweet mashed potatoes. It's already sliding all over the place. You can see the skin of the potato in there. It is mashed, very lightweight, a different take on the spud itself when we started to cook it. Smells very fragrant because of that fresh thyme. And there we go. So let's put this aside and start with our sweet. So again, this is another take on mashed sweet potatoes. It's a sweeter take because we are adding 2 flavors that will accentuate the sweetness of the sweet potatoes. It's a natural sweetness. We're adding 2 tablespoons of raw honey, and we're adding 1/4 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. So these 2 things are natural. One's plant, one is a natural sweetener, and they will accentuate the natural sweetness of the sweet potatoes. So for those sweet fans out there, this recipe might be for you. If you're not a savory fan or if you don't like traditional mashed potatoes, try out this recipe. So I just mashed for the second time in a portion. And so now I'm going to start to sprinkle the ground cinnamon. I'm going to do half, and then I'm going to add the honey. And it takes a little bit of time. There we go. And pour it all over. There we go. Amazing. I'm going to add the rest of the cinnamon. Great. And now I'm just going to mix. You can already smell that cinnamony flavor. Again, the sweet potatoes have a sweet smell to it. It's just the perfect side dish. And again, no added refined sugar. Natural sugar comes from the sweet potato and from the honey. And then that ground cinnamon is a spice that accentuates a sweet flavor. It's a really great added flavor. I'm going to give it a great mix. Make sure the bottom partakes in the ingredients. And there you have it. We have mashed sweet potatoes with ground cinnamon and honey for our sweet fans. That was our second recipe. I'm going to go ahead and put it aside, and we are going to grab our last but not least recipe. We have our last recipe for mashed sweet potatoes, which is a savory take. For the savory take, we will have an array of ingredients I have lined up here. We will go through each ingredient and the portions of what you'll need to create this great dish. So why don't we give it another mash like we did for the other two. One last time. Go. And this one is, again, a savory take. It has more ingredients. It's a little bit more sophisticated, especially if you are trying to uplift a main dish. This is the perfect side dish for folks who like sweet and savory. Sweet potatoes aren't overly sweet, but they do have a natural sweetness to them. For those who've had sweet potatoes, it wouldn't surprise you. For people who haven't had sweet potatoes before, maybe this is a great way to introduce it to them because it is not overly sweet, but it has that balance of sweet and savory. I'm going to stick my spoon in there. We just did our second mash. Let's go over the key ingredients that we need. So first, we will need a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil. Next, we will need ground pepper. I put about a teaspoon in there. Again, salt is optional. There's a teaspoon of salt in here. That is optional. Then we'll need one medium garlic clove. It can be pressed or minced. I use minced. Now getting into our bigger ingredients, let's start with our parsley. So you will need to finely chop 1/3 of a cup of parsley. Go. Another 1/3 of a cup you'll need of green onion. Beautiful. 3 tablespoons of butter. And you will need 1/4 of a cup of sour cream. You do not need 1/4 of a cup of sour cream. You can also substitute this with Greek yogurt. So Greek yogurt can be a natural substitute for the sour cream. All right, so we again mashed our sweet potatoes the second time. We are going to start to add our sour cream. Add the sour cream onto the top. There we go. And I'm going to add the green onion into the bowl. And our parsley. Then I'm going to add the butter. Next, I'm going to add the butter. Come on, butter. There we go. Then our garlic. Gonna start to stir this. Oh, you can already smell the oniony flavor. Turns a lighter orange because of that sour cream. There we go. Giving it a good stir. And you get more of that traditional mashed potato consistency because of the butter and the sour cream. It's nice to see green in here with the green onion and the parsley. Beautiful. Next, I'm going to add pepper, the olive oil, and a little bit of salt. Just give it another good mix. Beautiful. These are so light and fluffy. Looks so good. And they smell delicious. Again, a really good take on savory mashed sweet potatoes. You see that skin, which gives it a darker color. Fluff it out a little bit. There we go. And let me place this on a plate to show you what it looks like. And there you have it, guys. We just created mashed sweet potatoes in 3 different ways. The 3 different ways, just to go over it again, we had our traditional take, which just added thyme, salt, and pepper. We had our sweet take, which added ground cinnamon and honey. Then we had our savory taste, which added an array of savory ingredients, including parsley, green onion, sour cream, and garlic. All 3 of these different mashed sweet potato side dishes were made out of one pot. The one pot included boiling those cut sweet potatoes, those washed and cut sweet potatoes in one pot, made about 9 pounds. We boiled them in one pot. Once they became soft, we strained them, then separated them into 3 portions after mashing. Then remashed them and then added our ingredients, mixed it together, and we have these 3 delicious meals, all different, all made from sweet potatoes, all very healthy, and I'm so excited to share these with my family, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Let us know if you end up making this meal. Just leave us a comment below or in the event page. And we hope that you join us for our next, our next Facebook Live event.